Nobody throws a party for the woman who quietly figures it out. There's no parade for the girl who stopped asking for help somewhere around age 22 and just started handling things. No announcement, no applause, no moment where someone looks at you and says, "We see what you've been doing and it matters." It just happens in silence. The sacrifice happens in silence, the discipline happens in silence, and if you're lucky, eventually the reward shows up in silence too. That's how it was with Violet. She didn't sign that lease in Middletown with champagne and a celebration. She signed it on a Wednesday evening after work, sitting across from the property manager with a pen that kept skipping, and when it was done, she just sat there for a second staring at her own signature. 3 years of her life were in that signature. 3 years of saying no to things, of eating the same cheap meals on rotation, of watching her account like a hawk watches something it cannot afford to lose. And now it was real. A floor-to-ceiling window, a lobby that didn't smell like someone else's problems. A place that was completely, entirely, unapologetically hers. She drove home that night with both hands on the wheel and the radio off. Just her in the quiet. She wasn't even fully happy yet. It was more like relief. The deep kind that doesn't make you smile, it just makes your shoulders drop about 2 inches and your chest finally remember how to open all the way. She should have known the quiet wouldn't last. Violet kept the apartment to herself for exactly 6 weeks. Didn't post it anywhere, didn't bring it up during the Sunday phone calls home, didn't mention it to anyone except Jess at work, because Jess had sat next to her through the entire grind and earned the right to know. Everyone else got nothing. Not out of shame, not out of secrecy for its own sake. Just because Violet knew her family the way you know a weather pattern you've lived inside your whole life. She loved them. She did. But she also knew what happened when they found out about something good. They arrived. That was just what they did. 6 weeks was all she got before someone talked. She never found out exactly who. Probably her aunt, who had a way of extracting information from conversations without anyone realizing they'd given it. Somehow, a picture got taken during a brief visit from a cousin passing through, a picture Violet didn't know existed, and from there, the information traveled the way family information always travels. Fast, thorough, and completely beyond your control. She was at work when it started. A Tuesday, ordinary in every way. The kind of day that stacks meetings on top of each other and hands you a report at 3 in the afternoon that was supposed to be simple and turns out to be anything but. By the time Violet finally got on the elevator heading up to her floor that evening, she was running on fumes and the pure idea of her couch. She heard them before she even got her key out. Voices coming through the door. More than one. She stood in the hallway just holding her key, listening. She picked out Danny's laugh first, that big, slightly too loud laugh he'd had since he was a kid. Then her mother Donna's voice giving some kind of instruction to someone in the kitchen. Then the unmistakable sound of a television already turned up too high. Violet opened the door. The living room looked like a moving truck had made a delivery she hadn't ordered. Danny was stretched across her couch with both shoes still on, phone in his hand, completely at ease. Carmen was in the kitchen opening Violet's cabinets one by one like she was conducting an inspection. Bree, her younger cousin, was sitting cross-legged on the floor by the window, holding her phone up toward the Middletown skyline, already filming content. And Donna was standing in the center of the living room with the posture of a woman who had personally chosen and furnished the entire space. There were bags everywhere. Not overnight bags. Full luggage. The kind with the extended handles pulled all the way up. "What are you guys doing?" Violet asked. Her voice came out steadier than she actually felt standing there. Donna turned around wearing the most unbothered expression that has ever lived on a human face. "Just what you're seeing," she said. Flat, calm, final. Then she turned back around. That was the whole answer. Just what you're seeing. As if Violet had asked what 2 plus 2 was and Donna had said 4 and considered the matter closed. The conversation that followed went the way these conversations always go in families like theirs. Long and circular, everyone talking slightly past the actual point. Donna said she'd seen pictures. Again, nobody explained which pictures or how, and once she saw the space, she knew there was more than enough room. Danny said he and Carmen had been dealing with a difficult landlord situation and needed somewhere to land for a little while. Temporary, he said. Bree was just visiting. Her 2 large suitcases suggested a different definition of visiting than the one most people use. "This is my apartment," Violet said at one point. Not loud. Not mean. just clear to the room as a statement of existing fact. "And we're your family," Donna said back. Said it like it was a complete answer. Like those two things canceled each other out or something. They didn't. But Violet had 28 years of experience with this dynamic, and she knew that pushing it harder that night would just mean the same argument at a higher volume, with everyone interrupting everyone else and nothing actually getting resolved. So she absorbed it. She put Danny and Carmen in the guest room, set Bree up on the pull-out sofa, sorted out where Donna would sleep, and somehow ended up organizing an entire arrangement she had never agreed to. Then she went to her room, sat on the edge of her bed, and texted Jess. They found the apartment. The response came back in under a minute. "Oh no." "Yeah," Violet typed back. And then she put her phone face down and stared at the ceiling for a while. She left early the next morning before anyone else was up. Took her coffee down to the courtyard and sat outside while Middletown was still quiet, and the air still had that early coolness to it that disappears by 9. She wasn't plotting anything dramatic. She just needed to think without someone needing something from her for 20 consecutive minutes. She thought about the lease. She thought about the clause she vaguely remembered regarding additional occupants. She thought about how hard she had worked, and how the one thing she had asked for, without even saying it out loud, without asking anyone for anything, was just a space that belonged to her. That was the whole request. Just a place where she could close the door and exist without negotiating for it. She went to work, got through the day, came home Wednesday evening to find the apartment even more inhabited than it had been the night before. Carmen had rearranged the throw pillows on the couch into a configuration Violet didn't ask for. Danny had bought a video game console, and it was already connected to Violet's television with the cords running along the baseboard. Donna had cooked dinner, which genuinely smelled good, but every single pot and pan Violet owned was sitting in or around the sink. Bree had apparently spent part of the afternoon exploring the building and came back with a full report about the courtyard and the rooftop area and how nice the whole complex was. Said it like a compliment. Like Violet needed Bree to confirm that the place she worked 3 years to afford was in fact nice. It was Wednesday, and it already felt like they'd been there a month and a half. Thursday morning, Cole Harper knocked on the door. Violet opened it, half expecting a neighbor with a noise complaint or someone from the building office. Instead, there was a man somewhere in his mid-50s, calm the way people with genuine authority tend to be calm, not loud, not aggressive, just completely settled in himself. Dressed neatly, folder tucked under one arm. The kind of expression that belongs to someone who has had professional conversations his entire adult life and knows exactly how to have one. "Miss Violet?" he said. "Yes," she said. "I'm Cole Harper. I own this unit." He said it the way you state a fact about geography. The sky is blue. This building is on Main Street. "I own this unit." Behind Violet, the apartment went quiet. Not gradual quiet, immediate quiet. The television volume didn't lower, but somehow it felt like it did. She heard Carmen stop moving in the kitchen. She felt Danny sit up on the couch without turning around to look. Cole explained it plainly. His lease included a standard occupancy clause, one Violet had signed, requiring written notice and approval for any additional occupants staying beyond 72 hours. He hadn't received any such request. The building manager had noted the increase in activity on the floor. He wasn't there to be aggressive about it, he said. He was there to have a conversation and understand what the situation was. Violet stood at the door and felt something she hadn't expected. Not embarrassment exactly, more like a door opening. Like the situation was handing her something she hadn't known how to reach for herself. She stepped slightly to the side. "Come in," she said. Cole walked in. And for the first time since Tuesday evening, the apartment felt like it belonged to Violet again, just by the way everyone else in the room seemed to shrink back into themselves a little. Danny sat fully upright. Carmen came out of the kitchen and stood near the counter with her arms folded in a way that looked uncertain. Donna stayed standing in the middle of the room, but the unbothered expression had rearranged itself into something more careful. Bree didn't say a single word. Cole looked at the room, the luggage still visible. The settled-in arrangement of people who had clearly been here more than one night. He asked Violet directly, professionally, how many additional occupants were currently staying in the unit. Violet answered him honestly. "All of them, since Tuesday." He nodded. He explained that under the lease terms, unauthorized long-term occupancy was a violation. He wasn't there to remove anyone that morning. He was giving Violet the opportunity to resolve it properly. But it needed to be resolved. Either a formal request gets submitted with appropriate documentation and approval, or the additional occupants needed to make other arrangements. He gave her a reasonable window to sort it out. Said it without cruelty, without making it a scene. Just the facts and a timeline and a handshake on the way out. When the door closed, the room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then Donna said carefully, "Who was that?" "The man who owns this apartment," Violet said. "The one I've been paying rent to for 6 weeks." Another silence. Danny cleared his throat. "So what does that mean for—" "It means," Violet said, and she kept her voice even, kept it the same temperature it had been since Tuesday, "that I need you guys to figure out a plan. I love you. All of you. But I signed a lease. I have responsibilities here that exist whether or not we're related, and I can't put what I've built at risk because nobody asked me first." Nobody argued. That was the part that surprised her most. Not a single rebuttal. Carmen looked at Danny. Danny looked at the floor. Bree studied her phone screen without actually looking at it. And Donna, who had answered just what you're seeing like it was the most reasonable thing in the world 2 days ago, stood there in the middle of the living room and for the first time looked like a woman who understood that she'd walked into something that wasn't hers to walk into. "We'll figure it out," Donna said, quieter than usual. "We'll make some calls today." Violet nodded. "Okay," she said. And then she went and got ready for work, because she still had a job to get to, a life to maintain, and a lease with her name on it that she intended to keep. They were mostly gone by the weekend. Danny and Carmen found a short-term option they should have looked into before showing up. Bree went back home. Donna stayed 2 extra days, just 2, and she asked this time, actually asked, and on her last morning she sat at Violet's kitchen table drinking coffee and didn't say much. Just looked around the apartment, the way people look at something when they're finally seeing it instead of just being in it. "You did good," Donna said eventually. Simple. No performance behind it. "I know," Violet said. Not arrogant. Just honest. She washed both their cups after her mother left, dried them, put them back where they belonged. Then she stood at her window and looked out at Middletown for a while. Quiet apartment. Her throw pillows back where she kept them. Her pots clean and hanging where they hung. Just her and the silence she had worked 3 years to afford. It was exactly enough. Violet never asked anyone to struggle with her. She put her head down and did the work alone. And the moment the reward showed up, the assumption was that it now belonged to everyone. That's a pattern worth recognizing. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. Setting boundaries with family is one of the hardest things a person can do precisely because love is real and complicated. But love doesn't override respect. Showing up unannounced with luggage isn't love, it's assumption. An assumption, left unchecked, will cost you the very thing you sacrificed to build. Cole Harper showing up wasn't a crisis. It was a mirror. Sometimes life hands you an external consequence to say out loud the thing you haven't been able to say yourself.